Ready? Okay, it's 6 p.m. I call this meeting of the Water Commission to order. Roll call indicates we have two commissioners that are, I guess they voluntary excused absence. Commissioner Carmichael and Commissioner Haldeman. All the commissioners are present. Okay, so would you please join me in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have no one signed up? Okay. So we have no one signed up for the citizen comment period, so we'll skip number 4 and move on to number 5, which is business items. First item is approval of the May minutes. So hopefully you've had some chance to look at them beforehand. Does anybody have any corrections to the minutes? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the May minutes.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Motion to approve the minutes in a second as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, 5B, is discussion and reports. The first one is Water Manager's monthly activity report. So, Mr. Parsons, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Should have got my mic earlier, I apologize. All right, so you can tell with the report that we're using a lot more Edwards water now. We're in the warmer months, and you'll be seeing that increase. So that will continue to rise. You can see your percentage of your water loss went down. As far as the projects go, is where the bulk of the things are happening. We're still working on the water master plan. We are also working with the subcommittees on the different tasks that we've had, working on that. Also looking at the water loss, a better synopsis of how, and I want to break that down for the Water Commission, and I'm working on that, getting some numbers and calculations and showing how that happens and why it happens, and explain it better, because there has been a lot of questions over water loss. So we have the 2252 wastewater project is ongoing, and we had to repair the AC over at the Showenthal well site. Other than that, with COVID, we've been able to maintain everything and continue to progress and keep up with all the work that's been coming in. So with that, I can entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Do we have any questions for Mr. Water Manager? On my right, start.
Just to clarify, you're talking about the water loss numbers. You're going to come back later with more information on that, or you have more information at this time on some of it, or?
No,
I'm not sure what you meant.
no, there's been a lot of questions of why water loss, how water loss, and not just from the Water Commission, but also council. And so I wanted to put something together where it explains it from A to Z and explains it, and then where we fall into all that. So that should be, I should have that together for next month.
Okay, so for what we're looking at right now, even though the number for May is lower than the number from April, the trend month to month is significantly higher than the last year. Is there nothing there that is cause for worry on your part?
No, no, sir. So when you look at the water loss from month to month, there's variables, and there's a lot of variables, which I'll in the report that I'm going to develop and get to you, we'll explain all that. But what happens is there is a cost of doing business almost, and the AWWA standards, they talk about, the water loss and what you should be seeing and what you should be looking at. And so I'll be bringing all that so we can look at that together and chewing on that. But no, I am not concerned with the water loss.
Okay, I'll hold the question then, but I just note that trending increased water loss is one indicator of many of potential infrastructure issues. That's why I'm harping on it, where we're looking at the trends just to make sure we see what's going on. But I'm satisfied with your answer, and I'll wait to hear more information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners to my left?
I have nothing.
No question? No question.
Oh, also, one last thing. We have a new water clerk that just joined us, Miss Jocelyn Schneider, and she started yesterday, so welcome to the fire, because we had meter reading day. So I just want you to know, and put the name in the face, and if you have any questions, you can talk to her later. Of course, you have to stay 6 feet apart, so. Thank you.
Thank you for, welcome, Jose. Thank you, Mr. Parsons, for your report. Okay, moving on to review the items discussed during the June 3rd City Council regular meeting. So during the City Council, the City Council approved our recommendations to credit 8150 Garden Ridge North, credit of $1,022.84 for water leak adjustment. They also approved to credit 525 FM 3009, the credit of $730.15 for past due penalties. Note this dollar value was corrected from the Water Commission meeting to include the November 1st water bill of $55.58, thus lowering the credit by $5.56. So I think our recommendation was like $735, so we changed it to $730 based on that calculation. Anyway, both those items were approved. I also reported to City Council that we reviewed 5 other leak adjustments, 4 of which the Commission made recommendations to the City Administrator to take action, and then 1 was placed on hold, which is actually on today's agenda. I've also provided a brief update to Council on the water meter project. I think that's all. Anything else that I might have missed? Okay. Any questions on the City Council meeting? On my left, starting.
Did they ask any questions about the water meter project?
No, I mean, we just gave an update. It was in discussion at that point. You know, I just kind of promised what's coming up next,
Okay.
basically, so.
Thank you.
I don't recall any serious questions. Yeah. Am I right? Okay, thank you. Okay, so, under business item, see number 3 is discussion of FM 2252 wastewater project. I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Thompson to give us an update.
Good evening. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah. This is just a real quick thumbnail of what's going on with the wastewater project. This has been going on for years. It's a pressurized sewer system that's designed for commercial use only at this point on 2252. It will go from basically the Dover Lane area and go north and south to service any development that's going to happen on both of those in both of those directions. We've been talking about it for quite a while. Council about 6 months ago in open session directed the engineer and our financial advisors to start to dig deep into this and figure out what it was going to take and what we needed to do. The reasons why we're doing it is to cultivate quality development on 2252. It's the only place left that we have, and both from a standpoint of diversifying our income a little bit. I won't overplay the diversification of income, but it will, both from the perspective of ad valorem tax, because a lot of the land right now in 2252 is ag exempt, and the city doesn't really bring in much at all. But once it becomes actual business land, the ad valorem tax will considerably increase, as well as sales tax. And it's no secret that bills go up every year, and I'm trying really hard to keep recommending to council that the tax rate stays flat. So the money's got to come from somewhere. That's one piece of it. The other is, frankly, I would really like to spend money in Garden Ridge instead of somewhere else. You know, I find myself getting gas in Garden Ridge sometimes, knowing it's more expensive just because I'm stubborn and I want to keep the money in Garden Ridge. But there's not a lot of ways to keep money in Garden Ridge. And I've had other people tell me that as well. There's going to be development on 2252 whether we do this or not, but by doing this, it increases the ability and utilization of the land. You know, we have requirements for developers with impervious cover that can be relaxed significantly if they don't have to have sewer fields or, you know, septic systems and all that kind of thing. It'll help them to help us, in essence. This has been in the works and been planned for quite a few years. Pressurized sewer system. Some of you have received a briefing, and at least two people that happen to not be here tonight, I know did not get the briefing. And it's important that we all are on the same page and understand what the pressurized sewer system is. It's not my intent tonight to tell you, other than to say it's vastly different in scope, in size, in cost, in construction than a traditional, what you're used to with manholes and big, huge concrete pipes and everything else. It's pretty efficient, and it's a proof concept in both business areas and in residential areas throughout this region. So we're pretty confident this is the right system for us. Again, because we're not going to take it into the neighborhoods. The interesting part of this is that we're public with it, with a little piece that we're still not public with, because we're working some interlocal agreements that by law, as we're doing the negotiations and as we're working the terms, they don't have to be public, so we don't have to tell, in essence, the other side what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're trying to do. So when you look at council meeting agendas and minutes, you'll see that there's been executive sessions where we have had those discussions. So the existence of the project, scope of the project, all that stuff is all public, but there's some pieces that are still in executive session. I expect that within 1, maybe maximum 2 months, the whole thing is going to be public. I tell you that because I feel a little weird telling you that you're going to be the advisory board for a project that you don't know everything about yet. But that is the reason why I'm telling you this tonight. Your chairman and I talked about this and said it's time for us to start to introduce this to you, because this will be part of the water company. The Garden Ridge Water Company will have water and wastewater system. And so your commission will oversee the wastewater system as well. So that is everything from, as we start to work things into ordinances, and rates and policies and everything else. You're going to have an advisory role, as you do with the water system right now. So we want to start to ease you into the idea of what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're doing, and all that. I talked to Chairman Valdez, and he's going to make sure that we get on the schedule, and we don't want to take the time tonight, but get on the schedule either in a meeting or separately for everyone to make sure that they understand the system itself. What a pressurized sewer system is, how it works, what grinder pumps are, why they're per service address, and they're not aggregated through neighborhoods or areas or anything like that. So we'll make sure you know all that stuff and understand all that stuff, and then we'll start to work through the rest of it. We're in the middle of engineering. We have our engineer here tonight, but we're not going to talk much about the design other than to say we're deep into the engineering, the scope, the location of all of the main lines, and we've also spoken with developers, the developers that are pretty active and been chomping at the bit to make something happen on 2252 with the land that they have, and that's important. It's critically important because, frankly, we need them to be part of it, because absent their participation, both from tying into it but also contributing to this system, we wouldn't do the system. Because one of the goals, and I'll tell you personally, it's my goal, but it is also now the goal of the council and the city at large, is that we have as little capital outlay as we can, and as little impact as we can to the city fiscally. we will have to put some money out. The goal is to not have it affect our tax rate, and we're working that pretty heavily, and we'll be meeting with our financial advisor again this week. And that is looking down the barrel of also water meters. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in this space, but nevertheless, we have every intention of presenting a budget to council that does not increase our interest and sinking load. So we'll start to pull some of that stuff back, show you what's going on, and get you fully involved. And as we move forward, all you got to do is let us know what you don't know, what you want to know, what you don't understand, and we'll make sure we get you the answers so you can become as well versed and, frankly, probably better versed in the system than council will be. Let's see. Chairman, is there anything else that you want me to address? My intent was to make this just an introductory set of comments to give you, to kind of wet your whistle on what we're doing and where we're going, but a lot more to come, because again, full intent that you will be the advisory board for this system as well, okay? You'll have all access to everything and make sure that you have every opportunity to get all the answers you need to be able to make the informed recommendations to council. Sir, is there anything else you need me to say?
Let's see if any questions from other commissioners.
Okay. Anybody?
Oh, on my left? Okay, I know that you have, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry about that. A couple of quick questions, Mayor Thompson, if you don't mind. Do you know, is there a timeline for this?
Good question. And it was on my list of things to talk to you about, and that is as soon as we can. We expect that by the end of the summer, there's going to be pipe in the ground. This is, and it sounds abrupt, but it's not. We've been talking about this since before I was the mayor. So, we've been talking about this for over 3 years. But no kidding, we are to the point where we got a few things to deal with. As I said, obviously the funding and how we want to make this work that's best for the city, and also the interlocal agreement angle of this as well, which is not going to prevent us from moving forward. We have an imperative to get going because we have some people that are building or getting ready to build, and we want them to tie in. And talk is cheap. We say, hey, don't build a septic system because we'll have a system for you. We could leave them in the lurch if, as a government agency, we can't make it happen fast enough. So there is an imperative to get this going literally in the next few months.
That's part of the reason why I'm asking, because I know there's a building right near my house.
Absolutely.
Probably
Yes, sir.
interested. The last question I had, is this part of the water master plan, or is this a separate and distinct project, and will it be tied in at some point?
Eventually it'll be tied in, but it's not really part of the water master plan. The water master plan, and our water manager can speak to it more in detail than I can, but the water master plan has always been literally the water system. Now, that said, when we do this sewer system, now the water company will be both. So yeah, it'll eventually be part of it, but the intent right now is that we need to get going on the water master plan, delivering, safe, always available water to everybody that's a customer of our company.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
No, I was just going to mention that Ordinance 200 is the one that covers the wastewater master plan. That's kind of initiated things
Yes,
earlier on. That was kind of
absolutely.
the start of it.
Yes,
So-
and eventually
so it was
it'll all
separate
become
from
one.
the other one, yeah. Now, I know, I don't know if Commissioner Harshberger and Bullard, did y'all get to sit in with city engineer Dan back a year ago?
I wasn't in on that discussion, but it was part of our discussions with Tri-Hydro and the infrastructure a little bit, so.
Okay, so recently.
I got it more recently. The mayor added a little bit more detail, but
Okay.
I was familiar with
You
it.
might, I know you were part of the commission then, back, it would have been January of last year.
Yeah, I'm the OG on the commission right now. No, sir, I
Okay,
haven't sat
we're
recently.
the only three that would have been around back
Yeah.
then.
Well-
So I know I have, and I have information.
Chairman
on-
Valdez, it's my desire that they get a full briefing
we need to get
along with, let them see what some of the equipment looks like, stuff that you and I got to do. I really want them to know everything there is to know about this stuff.
I guess the question is going forward, do you want to try to schedule something during the water commission meeting, we want to have a special water commission meeting, or we can set up sessions with two commissioners at a time. So we have those three options.
What are we able to do here? They come and brief us?
They could come and brief us during the session, or we could spend more detailed time if we want, but if we do it separate, we could do a special commission meeting outside of this meeting,
Yeah.
just for that,
Right,
at a different day, different time. It could be during the day, or it could be at, whatever hours.
sure.
Or we just have the city engineers meet with two commissioners at a time, so they have to do it 3 times.
Right.
In a way, it's better, we're all here, so we all hear the same thing,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
I think
Otherwise,
that's
somebody asks a question that the other people might miss, so
Yeah, I think that's
there's
great.
one advantage of doing it all as a group.
So, yeah, we can have them come here because we, coordinate our schedules right now. with
Right, so-
Everything that's going on, so
We try to do it during the regular session to begin with?
That would be
Just
great.
seeing with them, okay.
I think so.
So we'll see if we can put it on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
But this topic will be, I foresee it being a standard line item in on future agendas,
Yes, sir.
even if we just have a brief, just update, so, okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to Section C, recommendations. So we get into water leak adjustments. By your station, you had received a Water Commission June water leak adjustment summary. So there's a summary that provided by the water manager with an overview of kind of how things work. Just a reminder, by law, the Water Commission does not have the authority to grant any financial credits. The Water Commission can only recommend to either the city administrator for credits up to $500, or recommend, or to city council to take action for credits up over $500. So again, all we can do is recommend. We'll follow the same process we did in previous times. I'll ask the water manager to give us a brief introduction about the request, what was found, and recommendations, and provide the commissioners with the opportunity to ask questions of the manager. And also, if we have the petitioners, we have 2 petitioners at least available by contact, or 2 of the, yeah, that we can always call them. Is the third one? Yes.
I did just want to say that both the phone numbers you have for those residents, they request to only be called if you have questions.
If we have questions, okay,
Yes.
very good, thank you. So if we have questions, we can call them, otherwise we have information, okay? So let's start off with the first one, request for water leak adjustments for 8323 Shining Elk. So, Mr. Parsons?
Thank you. So I just want to go over kind of the format of how we put the numbers together, because it's going to be the same for all of the water leak adjustments. You can see the water bill section. It's going to be for each section will be for that billing period of time of the dates you see there. And then it'll go down to the water bill of what that water bill was for that month, how much water was leaked, and then the consumption that the customer consumed, or what we show that wasn't a leak. And then you'll see underneath it was the customer's payment, how much the customer actually paid for that bill, if this was the credit, and then the credit of what the customer would get back. So it kind of breaks that down. For 8328 Shining Elk, we found 101,000 gallon water leak over 2 billing periods. A 1-inch water line was repaired in the front yard by a contractor and meets the criteria for a leak adjustment credit. The calculated credit is $525.23, which is over the $250 limit. The customer has requested the bill be reduced to $300. And if you have any questions on that, I can answer them.
So I'll start on my
Can try
left
to
this
answer
time. Any questions? Commissioner Miller?
Mr. Parsons, you said it was in the front yard. Was this, and it was over 2 billing periods, was it hard to detect?
Yeah, so according to the customer, and what the customer sent us was they found it in the front yard, and there are some, I believe, some pictures in this one. Is there pictures in this one,
I
Kat?
don't think so.
No, okay.
No.
with reviewing the case, we could definitely look on the laptop reading and see the leak, and we can show what it was. Yeah.
Thank you. I was just sort of wondering if it was should it have been detected sooner?
It's always a question. It's something we ask, but of course, depending on, there's a lot of factors.
I
So,
understand.
yeah.
From the date on the leak adjustment request was the first, so I assume they got shocked when they got the water bill, and that's when they started looking for a leak.
And that happens a lot.
Commissioner Bowe, any questions?
Oh, I'm just reviewing it.
Go ahead. Let me come
You-
back to you. Or, go ahead.
You recommend, from your perspective, you recommend this.
Yes, when I make a recommendation, it's only based on the facts that
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Was that you? It just shut off. Okay. Yeah, so everything that we do is based on a calculation of how we go through it, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I don't know if it's a question, as I look through the data that's provided, it all seems very consistent and straightforward. There's always a little uncertainty in how much of it is really leak, how much of it is really used, because all you really know is the total consumption for that hour. So you can tell where the leak started, you're not 100% sure how much water was used in that time period. So I noticed the amount being right around the $500 limit. I was wondering if equity might suggest offering it as a $500 credit under the city administrator and just not having the issue of having it to get approved by a council since it's so close. And apparently, if I understand correctly, the customer asked for a reduction of $300, so it's really close to the same amount either way. So it's just a suggestion. I'm not sure that we have enough accuracy to split $25, but I'm comfortable either way.
Okay, well, first to look at your comments about the leakage versus how much, they might be consuming. One thing that Mr. Parsons does is he takes some of that into account, because even though it's over 200 gallons that he's showing per hour, he's showing 116 gallons on average and 141 gallons on average to accommodate the normal usage. So that's where he's getting some of the gallons, I guess. Correct, Mr. Parsons? Yeah. So,
Well, then I would ask, if we're going to go into that, if you would outline the process that you use to determine if it's 106 or 617 gallons for 116 hours instead of 618 gallons, like.
It's
how do we
very
get that precise?
I apologize. It's very difficult to do sometimes because depending on the leaks, so you have 3 different types of leaks. You have a consistent leak, which is real easy, right? You have your hours and your gallons per hour. Then you have ones that progressively get worse. Hello? Hello? Check. And then you have another leak that, I forgot which ones. Let me go through them again. So you have a consistent leak that you have that you can, it's pretty easy. Then you have one that's progressively worse. And then you have another one that's intermittent. So it's that one's probably the most difficult. And then if you have any combination of those, which means several leaks, one of them being intermittent, it's very, very hard and very detailed to get into that. I can do that if we want to go through each one, and I can show that. It just takes quite a bit of time, but I have no problem doing that.
Well, I'm not asking you to recreate it here. I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me, no matter what process you use, since we're accumulating data over a period of time, there is a certain amount of estimation involved. And that, that's all I was really getting at is.
Yeah.
How much is that? And what's the plus or minus range that we should be thinking about?
Well, and I look, if you look there on that form, it has 617 gallons times 116 hours, which gives you your 71,572. And so that is after you have your whole complete formula and everything. I break it down, and that's the easiest way to summarize what was found. So regardless of whether it's intermittent or whatever leak it was, that's just how we submit it to you guys. If there's some other way that you think would be better, let me know so I can explain it in a different way, I guess.
I'm happy with what you're doing. I'm just trying to make sure we understand
Okay,
the variability that may be involved or any degree of estimation that is involved. So sometimes there's more than others, so.
I do err on the side of the customer. So if it's a little bit, I go to the next whole number for the customer, not necessarily for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, you brought up a comment there, Commissioner Harsberger, about offering $500 versus the $525. What, you know, Ms. Kane, do we have that option? I mean, if the commission wants to offer 500 and recommend to you take action versus the 525?
Thinking.
Okay, I know.
My first thought is we need to be consistent with what we've done in the past.
The only difference would be is I take it to city council is the only difference. So, I
Right.
mean, I don't have a problem taking it to city council, so,
I just feel like we need to be consistent with the way we've handled the leak adjustments in the past.
that's my thinking too.
That's
Okay.
my thoughts.
Okay. So, do I have any more questions, or do we have a motion?
Was that a question for the customer? Because, I mean, there's always the option, there's always the potential of the council saying no.
Right.
Whether that would happen or not, you don't know, but it's just a matter of,
It could be a question in future that could be asked before the water commission meeting, maybe.
That could possibly be a thought that
The
as
thought that we could
the,
add in, yeah.
as Jacob, I'm sorry. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. That could possibly be something that Jacob could offer to the resident before it comes to Water Commission.
Right.
So that y'all have an idea as to what the customer would be willing to accept.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
again, the main reason I even brought it up is on the paperwork that was provided to us, the customer simply requested the bill be reduced to $300. So, not every customer puts in a request that specific. So I'm not trying to make an issue of it. I'm satisfied with the data that's here, and we can continue under that typical process.
Perhaps going forward, Mr. Parsons, do you mind making that part of your process to ask, it's kind of customer education piece. It's informing them, hey, look, the commission, they can approve recommendation up to 500. After that, we can approve recommendation to the council for anything above that. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
thank you, sir.
And I know you've done that for up to 250.
I've done that before, correct.
So, okay.
Mr. Chair.
So looking for, yes, sir.
Y'all are bringing up a really good point that I don't think any of us have ever thought about before. And we probably need to go back and address it and possibly even amend the ordinance. Or we're gonna have to look at this. But if you think about it, and run the traps on this, somebody says, I'm willing to accept $240 and just end this, and then he doesn't have a choice, but he's got to go with $2,000, and now the council says no, and the person says, wait a minute, I know they're not going to give me $2,000, I only wanted $240, and so logically, there should be a customer input into that. The customer should be able to look and see what's the what's the level and what's the risk level as I'm asking for more and more. It should be up to them, and we would never want to dissuade them from just saying, I want the full amount. And it's not like there's a big track record of council saying no all the time, but they have said no. And so, I don't know, our advisory board, you all might want to actually talk about that and consider if that's something we want to put into the process. And frankly, until tonight, I'd never thought about that, so.
Then for those reviewing those ordinances, consider.
Yes, sir. And that's what I was going to reply. We will take that in consideration. I wrote it down, sir.
Okay, thank
As we
you.
review 54.
So, going back to this item. Do I have a motion, one way or the other?
Yes, I make a motion that we recommend to city council the approval of a credit, total credit in the amount of $525.23 for the leak adjustment at 8328 Shining Elk.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend to city council to credit this customer $525.23. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, I have a first and second. Any other additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Now we go to request for water leak adjustment for 19099 FM 2252 for the billing period of February 20th, 2020 to March 23rd, 2020. Mr. Parsons?
Thank you. We found this, we found a 431,000 gallon leak over 2 billing periods that we were able to substantiate as a leak. The customer had a water main leak under the driveway that worsened over time. The leak has been repaired and meets the requirement for a water leak credit of $6,726.42. This is over the threshold for the water department. The customer is requesting that the maximum amount of the adjustment be allowed.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Parsons, starting on my left? Commissioner Mueller?
Sorry, I was trying to read their email. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'll be
This-
back with you in just a second.
Okay, this is First United Bank, by the way. Mr. Brewer?
This one thing comes to mind. It was a water main below their driveway, is what I read, right?
Yeah, this is their main line from the meter that goes into their establishment. So it's their main.
Their main,
Yeah,
right on
their
their side.
main.
Does it look like there was any foul play, for lack of a better word? I mean, anything that was within their control?
This is the problem with this situation is it's a big line. It's a 2-inch line. I believe it was a 2-inch line. Anyways, it was substantial, and we could see actually it grew over a longer period of time. This is all I can show and prove. But if you look historically, they've had a lot of water going through it, and the numbers in the laptop reading is very, very consistent, and it got worse and worse over time. They finally saw it surface. It was underneath the driveway itself, so it was one of those that it's really difficult to surface. But when it did, they spent a lot of money also to make the repair. So
Sure. This, I look at this number and it's sticker shock. It's like, oh, man, we can't give that much money. But I mean, we want to be consistent, and we have to take that into consideration. But also, the part of the customer, did they or do they have a maintenance person? I mean, I know you don't know all that, but
Yeah.
who did you talk to when you went out there? Was it the bank manager, the maintenance guy, gal? Who was it?
I believe it was the bank manager. They have noticed a high bill is when they noticed it, and then they called plumbers out. But since they're a business and they don't necessarily deal with all the bills directly, they just kind of pay them and keep going. Once they saw a high water bill, they asked a lot of questions.
Sure.
So
there's a letter that was on your station right there that was from today, from the manager. Apparently the bills go to Oklahoma so the local branch doesn't see them.
Okay.
And if you look by the history when you look at all the history of the last 2 years, the highest bill prior to May last year was $500. And it's creeped up from 1,000 all the way up to 8,000 over in that 1 year period. And since they go to Oklahoma, they never saw it, they didn't see that.
And it was one of the things that we monitored, but since it was a gradual leak that got progressively worse over time, that it didn't show up in ours as a flag saying, you know, they just went from 0 gallons to a trillion gallons, right? I mean, it wasn't just overnight. It was just progressive.
Sure. Okay.
And I do want to put a plug in that, you know, with an AMI system, we would be able to tell that happened really quickly, so.
Mr. Harshberger, any questions?
I have no question. This one's tough because the amount is so large. And when we look at responsibility, obviously this leak had been going on for a long time. But I think they've addressed why it wasn't noticed, and the gradual increase of it has been addressed. And quite frankly, with the water that they paid for prior to that already and the cost of the repair, I think the lesson has most likely been learned. So, I mean, we can document the amount. I think it's up to council to make the decision as to whether or not that's the right amount. So I'm inclined to approve it and go, well, not approve it, but recommend approval
Yes.
and go ahead. That would be my thoughts.
I agree with that. And reading their note that this was 8 feet underground underneath their driveway.
Yeah. Okay,
All right, so you need a motion, right?
great, I need a motion.
All
Who's
right,
gonna do
so,
it?
hey, I motion that we approve.
Recommend,
I recommend that we approve the amount.
no,
I mean,
We recommend
to,
City
this is
Council.
the first time I'm a rookie at this. I recommend that we approve the amount to city council for said credit of, what is it?
our
$6,726.
secretaries will get the wording right. Okay,
I'm right, I'm on point?
yeah,
All right. I recommend that we move the amount or forward to city council for approval for the amount of $6,726.42.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend to city council to credit First United Bank $6,726.42. Any additional discussion?
I will just add somewhat facetiously that the previous months that have been paid for have already gone significantly to contributing toward your AMI system. So.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll help show that. Okay. The next water leak adjustment is for 21-729 Forest Water Circle for the billing period of April 23rd, 2020 to May 21st, 2020. Mr. Parsons?
Yes, we found a 57,000 gallon leak from May 6th to May 18th that would result in a $581.97 credit. The leak was found to be the main line under the flower bed. This is the main that goes to the customer, so on the other side of the meter. The customer shut off the water to the house in order to not waste water until the line could be repaired. All paperwork was turned in and should be considered for an adjustment. The customer is looking for an adjustment to their water bill for the water leak, quote unquote. What's their request?
Okay, to highlight a few more things that I read in here is, they had just, this resident just made some modifications to their sprinkler system 2 days prior. So on the 17th of the middle of the month, they hadn't seen their bill yet. That's when they saw water in their driveway. And they called the irrigation company back out and found no leak there. And then they proceeded to call the city and for help and found, and brought a plumber in to find the leak. So everything was done pre-bill. They found the water, they started searching for it. What I liked about them is that they kept closing the water line and only used water when they needed it. So they kept it minimized after that point, so. Anyway, discussions, questions? Start with Mr. Harshberger.
I mean, again, the data here is pretty solid. It's, the amount you have is based on 188 gallons per hour, 304 hours. You still comfortable with that number? You don't consider it to be too variable? In other words, is that a good number to you?
Yes, sir.
I should have asked that question a little more clearly, shouldn't I? Thank you.
I spent a lot of time on those numbers, so yes, sir.
I think you also said there was additional information and didn't make it in the packet.
It should have made it in the packet on,
But there are pictures of some other stuff too, right? Okay. I got that, okay. Yep. Okay.
Oh, I did remember one question. I apologize.
Go ahead.
On this particular one, there are several readings that have negative values, which I have not seen before. I mean, I know they're insignificantly small. I'm just not sure how they come about.
so what happens with those negative numbers is if you have a hot water heater and you have an expansion tank, when it expands, sometimes it'll push that water back on the other side of the meter. And then when it cools down, it'll pull it back through. So sometimes you can see that.
But there's no indication that we think the meter's bad at this point.
No, sir, we have not found any indication of bad meters.
Okay. Am I right? I mean, my left now?
I have not.
Mr. Moore?
No questions.
Okay. So do I have a motion then? Oh, you say, okay, this is what wasn't in my packet now. These are the repairs. This is pictures of the repairs on your screen now. Okay.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion, okay, to City Council for the approval of the amount, credit of $581.97 for Forest Water Circle.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second motion to recommend to City Council a credit of $581.97 to the resident at Forest Water, whatever the address was. Yeah. 21729 Forest Waters. Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving right along. Now, the fourth water leak adjustment is for 21-926 Castano Clove. This was for the period of December 20th, 2019 to February 2020. Too many 20s there. Okay, last month, had a motion made and approved to recommend to table this request pending submittal of all materials, required materials, which was evidence that a permanent fix was made. Mr. Parsons, did we get additional information?
Yes, sir, we did. So this case was determined to have the problems with the hogs stepping on the water spigot. After speaking with the homeowner, letting him know the wishes of the commission, that it needed to be a permanent fix. He had a couple ideas, and what he ended up doing was cutting off the spigot, capping it, and burying it, so it's no longer there. And I believe we have a picture of that.
Yep. Towards the last that part of the packet.
So the recommendation is still the same if the commission feels that it's appropriate for this case. And that would be a total credit of $366.32.
questions? Starting on my left.
No questions, he did exactly what he want. I'm ready to make a motion whenever you are.
Okay. Commissioner Bullock, any questions?
It was so strong and powerful how he said that. I'm just ready to jump on board with that one. So I'm good.
He's getting comfortable. No questions over here, okay? So do I have a motion? Mr. Miller?
Of course. Make a motion to order the city administrator for recommended approval of a credit of $366.32 to 21926 Castano Cove.
I second that.
Okay, so I have a first and second to recommend to city administrator to credit this customer at 21926 Castano Cove, an amount of $366.32. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Guys, we're making great time. Okay, so we're finished with leak adjustments. So moving on to Water Commission activities and projects. First item was to discuss and make possible recommendations on AMI, AMR system. Last month, Commissioner Mueller and myself reviewed the Garden Ridge Water Meter Project presentation. After some discussion, motion was made and approved to recommend to city administrator and city staff and the city engineer prepare a scope of work for the installation of AMI water meter system. A draft version of the scope of work was submitted today to the city from Tri-Hydro and city engineers. Didn't give us enough time for the subcommittee to review that draft to be ready to review this evening, so we have nothing to present tonight. I'll turn it over, ask the city administrator or water manager what the next possible steps are. We just wait till then, correct?
So the next steps is we're going to get together as a subcommittee and engineers and staff, and we are going to kind of hammer out some of those issues or questions that have been brought up, the things that the specifics that need to be filled in. And once we do that, then we'll be able to continue on with the process.
Okay.
So
Bring it back to the Water Commission.
we are in discussion, and I am pretty confident that we are going to be able to bring you a submitted proposal, a scope of work, or RFP, depending on who you are, and for us to make a recommendation to council next Water Commission.
Possible, maybe we can do it prior to the packet being released. Maybe we can do an early issue out to the commissioners, give more time to be read before our committee meeting, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Before.
We would love to do that. We just have to get with Tri-Hydro, and we have to kind of hammer that out. But yes, I hope we can do that.
Okay, what was that? Any questions? Turn on my left, right? No questions? Okay, thank you. So now we move on to the other projects. I'll just start over here. Let you talk about infrastructure.
Okay.
Mr. Waterman.
So Commissioner Haldeman and myself and Mr. Parsons and the Tri-Hydro folks had a teleconference. I don't have the exact date written down, I apologize, about 2 weeks ago, to go over the water master plan and infrastructure needs, as well as its interface with the AMI project briefly. So, and of course, as you already know, but just to recap, the last master plan was in 2016. They're done every 5 years. So technically, this one's not due, if you want to use the word due, until 2021. So we're still, did you transition to phase 2? Because at the time it was about 3 weeks away, so we're getting close to that. Are we still finishing phase 1, or did we make it into phase 2 since our meeting?
Yeah, we are still in phase 1. So the water model that we've been put together has some variables. We did some more data collection points for the water model, and we put that in. But there are still some questions on a couple things that they're still trying to hammer out, or we're all trying to hammer out.
Okay, thank you. So the main issue there is calibration to make sure that the assumptions of the model are verified against real usage in the system, because they use that model to predict future needs. So that's what they're waiting on to finish phase one, and then they'll get into the phase two part. But the bottom line, and really what I'm trying to convey here, is we're a ways out from actually having a new water master plan. So the AMI issue, as well as issues with health and infrastructure maintenance for the next budget cycle, are probably not going to be derived from that plan. They're going to be things that we have to address separately. I did ask, and we discussed that the projects get prioritized, which of course is part of it anyway, but that we start looking at data for the system in terms of production, storage, distribution, and management control systems. So looking at it holistically, if you will, and then look at making sure we know age, size, and the network redundancy for each of those areas. So that's there. It's just a matter of getting it in a form that we can get our hands on and make sense of as, lay persons that don't do this for a living. So that part is a work in progress, but the bottom line for the commission is as we try to take this information forward into rate setting and other processes, there's still going to be a large number of assumptions, just like we had last time. But the hope is that will get narrowed down for the following year, which will also help because the potential infrastructure projects that are out there, especially the ones around 2252, which are not wastewater, but there's some actual water distribution issues that are related to that. Those things hopefully will get clarified in time for that plan, and things will come together, but we're just not there yet. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Parsons?
That's a fair statement.
So I think that's where we're at. We'll just keep on going. The system is in good shape. It's just a matter of, we can say that qualitatively and anecdotally. We can't say that with really hard data right now in all aspects. The newer parts of the system have pretty good data, but some of the older parts of the system, we know how big the pipes are. And that's really what we know. So more to come on that. But elevated tank and the bolted onto all that stuff is in work. So you should see more of that coming forward in terms of the priorities. But I do think, we had a motion last time about the AMI and whether it should be in the water master plan. Well, I do think management control systems should go there eventually. I don't think it's going to be timely for this particular system. So I think that needs to be continued to address separately. And then hopefully we can, make that plan a little bit more robust in the future. But right now it is literally strictly a project prioritization list for funding for bonds. So it's not an operational type of master plan. It's more of a financial plan in terms of what we're gonna, what the rack and stack is for priorities.
Any questions for Commissioner Harrisburg?
None for me.
Okay. Moving on to ordinances, governance and procedures, ordinances. So, both, who's going to take the lead?
Yes, sir. So Commissioner Mueller and myself, we've had a chance to meet multiple times. We've actually talked with Mr. Parsons on different occasions as well. We kind of had to get an idea of how we're going to approach this thing, and what we decided, of course, after conversation with Mr. Parsons, is to go line upon line, precept upon precept, looking at it from a commissioner's perspective, from a customer's perspective, and trying to figure, what's going on with our ordinances. So we reviewed, first of all, I want to say that Ordinance 96 was on our list to do, but that is the water master plan, and that's already under review.
That was a typo? It
Yeah.
should be 61.
Yes, sir.
I knew I had to delete one, and apparently deleted the wrong one, so I just corrected it on mine right now.
Gotcha.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. So, and he sent us on the right trail. We were able to review 159 and 61. And right now, 61, I sent it to Mr. Parsons today for his review because we want to make sure that our suggestions, our thoughts, and our questions were viable, to bring before the commission, if they were even, anything to think about. We did review it line upon line, so as he gets an opportunity and we have dialogue between now and next committee meeting, we hope to bring some suggestions before the commission. 159 is in question. The reason we question it is because if you look at our list of ordinances, it's a building code, all right? And it falls up under, if anything, it'd probably be under planning and zoning, all right? You don't know about us as far as the Water Commission making recommendations on that particular ordinance. There are some things that we found that we can bring to the table. We'll send it to Mr. Parsons, and he's definitely welcome to share with, and we can bring it to this body as well. But it's found under our building code, and it is our irrigation, building landscape and irrigation ordinance. So, do we really want to continue to keep that under review of this body? I guess is the question that we pose to you all.
I know there's a section in the new zoning ordinance that covers irrigation, and there's some discussion, there's been some discussions there, since I'm on the planning and zoning also, to be sure we got both of them covered. So I'll maybe refer back to, we'll discuss, take it offline and discuss that.
Okay.
With the city administrator. I know that, correct, that the zoning ordinance has some sections on irrigation. Now, we talked about what belongs in which one, but we haven't really just got that detail yet. Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll have to address that, okay?
All right, so that's where we are, and as far as Ordinance 54, we're going to take that in a systematic approach. We imagine, at least 3 committee meetings down the line to maybe have it completed. We discussed briefing it. We're going to do it in thirds, so about 3 meetings. We're going to bring some recommendations back to the commission. We're not going to tackle the whole thing. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, and this is a larger ordinance that needs a little bit more detail, a little bit more thought. So we'll do that. There is nothing to report at this time for the customer education.
Okay.
Did you have anything, Commissioner Euler?
Thank you. Yeah, I did want to add one thing on 159. There are parts, irrigation is covered in parts of the zoning ordinance. I forget the number of that one. And there are some conflicts between those, and we pointed those out in our review. But the 159 does go into a significant more detail on landscape irrigation systems than the planning and zoning ordinance does. I know you're rewriting it in the Planning and Zoning Commission, so if they're going to incorporate all of it, that's great. If not, then they definitely need to look at, Planning and Zoning needs to look at 159 before anybody should approve it. Does that make sense?
I'll, like I said, I'll discuss offline with the city administrator and come up with a path forward on that 159 then. Okay, and we'll get back with you. Okay, so 61, probably have something next month? Yeah.
Yes, sir,
And
that
then-
is the plan.
And then 54, several, 3 or 4 months down the road?
Yes, sir.
That sounds good. Okay, thank you. Next topic is commercial water rates and then water rates review. I know I haven't done anything on the, Commissioner Mueller, I haven't done anything on commercial rates, have you?
No, I've not.
Okay, I know, I'll get with Kat later on that. And as far as the water rate review progress, we'll start collecting data on water usage. So we're gonna have that data, we need that data up through October to start that process. But I really haven't done anything more than that. And as far as document the review process, my intent was to document as we went this time, instead of trying to go back right now. Yeah. Makes sense to just document every step we did this way. Okay. The next item on source and supply management, Dr. Carmichael and Commissioner Haldeman are not here today. So those are the ones that covered the next items. So nothing there. And then for budget input, Commissioner Harshberg already covered a little bit of that, but we'll go into that to see how the budget process goes this year. See if we want any other input we need. Okay.
A comment, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
You mentioned with the water rate review process and getting ready to do the next one to get the water consumption data, but I would also, it was mentioned earlier today about discussing with the financial advisor and several issues. As we have those discussions, I would just like to ask, we also start pulling updated INS data, because that's part of the assumptions in the rate setting process is the amortization of those funds. And I know last year we had to make some pretty significant assumptions, so the better data that we can get on that, the
Well,
easier it will be.
We had the actual data that she had for existing, is if we had a potential for a bond issue, that's where we make the assumptions. Since we didn't have any, there's no changes. That's all.
Well, and they would only give you, so the rate setting process requires us to look forward. The data that was provided was only looking back, so the issue is making sure we have good, what's the current status of the discussions moving forward so that we can make sure that we don't overestimate or underestimate those numbers. I mean, there's going to be an assumption in there one way or the other, just because of the nature of it. You know, bonds haven't been. Well, anyway, that was my comment, is just to make sure that we update that data as well before we start trying to set the rate process.
And I know that the financial manager, Ms. Ford, will be working on that, and I usually get with her later on in the process. Right now, so I'm sure she's working on the budget part, so we'll get to that point when we need to. Okay? Okay, so we got, next item is discussion to make possible recommendation for future meetings on direction of these projects. All we said so far is, hope to have, draft scope of work for the meters, and also, for next month to, be prepared to present revisions to Ordinance 61. That's what I have so far. Anything else that I might have missed? Okay. That concludes this section on Commissioners' activities and projects. Moving on to number 6, Ordinance 210. This is a standing item that's always on here to see if there's any discussion around Ordinance 210. Anybody have any comments, discussion? I think everybody's okay with excused absences, things like that, so I think we're okay on that, so moving on with that one, close that one out. Future agenda items. So I have on here is possible, having the engineering details on the wastewater project. Do we want to try to do that next month? Let y'all decide when y'all want to try to do that.
Possible.
I'll work with city engineers on that for next month. So the wastewater project, the engineering details. Any other agenda items? Okay. Anybody else? Then the next commission meeting is July 28th, 2020 at 6 p.m. right here, City Hall. So moving on to our second citizen comment period. We have 20 minutes. We have one citizen. No interested in talking, so we'll close this session out. Look for a motion to adjourn then. Include all the items.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:09. That beats that 4 hours last time, huh? Thank y'all for